bring it over to the wealth creation space. And this is something where I asked a lot of people. I'm quite a good researcher, I like to think, one of my skills. It's become very apparent to me how many people, just especially business owners, don't have wealth goals. Like they haven't set what's enough. What does enough look like? How do I identify milestones or things along the way that would help me know I'm on track or off track? There's just this like more, which is what my young son Jack says when he wants something more.
And I always relate it to like that 1 degree situation, to use another aeroplane analogy again, right? So if you're 1 degree off center right at the start and you've propelled, like you amplify that over 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, it just becomes this so much further away from where you're originally planning, right? So if you don't think about where you want to be in that 10, 20 years time, you're going to be so far off, and it's going to take you so much longer to get back to where you want to be now. Like, it's crazy. Like, I come from software, and there have been strategies which is, hey, it doesn't matter if we spend more to acquire a customer than we will earn from them within the first 6 months, 12 months. Why? Because it's around funding. It's around increasing users. It's around bringing more people on. But holy smokes, you are leveraging that cost in order to get the funding, right? So if you miss it and don't get the funding, you don't just have 6 months or 12 months that you've burned. You now need to overcorrect because you burnt so much money to do it. And to your point, it is the exact same thing with wealth creation, right? Like if you go and get a whole heap of debt but focus on the wrong thing, you're sitting in a completely different camp to where if I had have sat down, taken the time to actually figure out, well, what is this thing and where am I going? That's going to be a 10 times better approach to doing it. But before we sort of keep diving in and providing some basics and some fundamentals around this, why do you feel like Australian business owners get this so wrong? Like, we're obviously spending Saturdays and Sundays and Mondays and Tuesdays the entire week thinking about our business and, well, what are we doing this quarter? What are we doing this year? And where are we trying to go if we do it at all? But why can't we just pick that up and just put it into wealth? Why don't our brains just go, wow, most of these concepts apply in business, but not in my personal life? Is it a barrier? Where's that gap?
Yeah, so again, this is an opinion. I'm sure there's exceptions to this continually, but I feel pretty strongly about this. Number one is I don't think there's a lot of people talking about it, and I hope this is one of the things this show changes. So how many business owners do you share your wealth goals with?
Yeah.
Right, but we all brag about how many staff we've got or the cost per lead on a new campaign or whatever it is. So I think it's hard to know what's comparable. So if no one's setting a good example, it's like you don't know what you don't know. So it's left in secret, and money's this taboo topic, and you're a horrible person if you want to be wealthy or rich. And of course, I'm broad stroking things there. I don't believe those. But I look at that laid in, and it seems to be a very, very core problem here. So I look at, again, no good examples, lack of money education, and then also money is a very emotional topic for a lot of people, and they've got stories and narratives, and it kind of ends up being one of these things we just want to pretend doesn't exist, but is also a very important factor in our lives.
Yeah, and I always see, like, I came from a family where, like, money was kind of taboo, right? Like, and I've known other families where sitting around a dinner table, like, they would talk about bills and they would talk about things that happened. I'm just like, what? You could talk about these things and you don't explode? Like, wow, this is interesting, because I'm like, okay, this is fundamental message that's imprinted in people's brains, and it is that it's more of a taboo topic. But I think that on the other side, people use this wealth, and I've seen this personally myself, and again, that's my opinion, where people will either overinflate their wealth, as whether it's a marketing for, or their, I don't know, the narcissism that they've got, or they'll like run away from it, where they feel like they're ashamed. They feel like, to your point, that, hey, if I do this, I might feel like I'm part of the rich, right? And I'll be excluded from my groups and things like that. But I actually think at the end of the day, to your point, it should just be talked about. It should be open. Like, you don't need to share your figures. Like, you don't need to say, hey, I've got this exact amount in property and shares and stuff like that. But I think having those conversations around, well, what are you doing? As opposed to buy this share, buy this crypto, buy this thing, right? Just having that conversation. Because one thing, like, as I've had more conversations with other business owners, and I'm going to ask you about what your experience has been, I'm like, well, what are you trying to achieve? through your business and your wealth, what are you trying to achieve? And you know what's funny? None of them don't want to work. They all love what they do. They all sit there and go, man, I want to enjoy business. And if I sell out and I make a boatload of cash, I'm like, well, what would you do? Open another business. And I'm like, great. And they're like, I might travel for a year, but I'm going to go back into business. And I think this comes back to this fascinating concept, which is most business owners don't want a $10 million house. Most business owners don't want a Ferrari and a Bentley. They want options. They don't want to sleep like with one eye open. They don't want to be stressing about payroll. They just want the option to work 40 hours, work 60 hours, work 10 hours, go on a holiday, do X, Y, and Z. Hey, fellow business owner, if this topic and value-packed short video has resonated with you at all and you want to dive deeper into wealth creation, check out the full episode by clicking the link on your screen or in the post right now.